All right, good evening and welcome to the New Canaan Board of Education's meeting. Once a year, we begin our meeting with our Board of Education election, and our first selectman, Rob Malazzi, is here to lead us in that endeavor. Rob.
Thank you, Dr. Litzy. Pleasure to be here as always. This is my 6th year calling this meeting to order and sitting over the elections here. So basically what I will do is seek nominations from the floor for the 3 leadership positions, that being chairman, vice chairman, and secretary. And I'll open the meeting by calling for nominations for chairman of the Board of Education. Hayes, I see your hand going up quickly.
I want to start and say Deanna Carlson has been the chairman of the Board of Education this year and proven to be an extraordinary leader. She was an excellent communicator to the board, parents, and other boards, town boards, and the community. She worked diligently to help people understand each other's positions and to build consensus for the best possible education for New Canaan students. Her financial business background and understanding of health insurance were simultaneously very helpful in building a fiscally responsible budget. Her organizational skills and humor streamlined our committee and board meetings while allowing full participation. For all these reasons and many more, I nominate Deanna Carlson, this outstanding leader, for Board of Education Chair for 2016-17.
Terrific. Thank you, Hazel, for that nomination. So we have a motion on the floor for Deanna Carlson to return in the role as chairman. Do we have a second? Jennifer?
I would love to second the nomination.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further comments, questions? Any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of Deanna Carlson serving another term as chairman, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Congratulations, Deanna. Way to go. She did do a fabulous job. Next up is the role of vice chairman. And again, I'll entertain nominations from the floor for vice chairman, please. Penny?
Sherry West has done an excellent job this year as chair of the Communications Committee and vice chair of the board. The district and its students and the Board of Education have benefited from her leadership, her passionate commitment to education, her effective analytical skills and good questions. And so for all those reasons, I would like to nominate her as vice chair of the board again for the coming year.
Terrific. Thank you, Penny. Nomination for vice chair is in play. Do we have a second, please? Jennifer again? I'm sorry, I saw Jennifer's hand first. Jennifer's hand. They were all raising their hands. So.
Jennifer. I would like to second that nomination as well.
Terrific. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye, please.
Aye.
That is unanimous. I didn't think there was going to be any other nominations. Lastly, we have the position of secretary. Again, nominations for secretary from the floor, please. Tommy?
Rob, I'd like to nominate Jen Richardson for the office of secretary. Over the past year, Jen has dutifully performed the role of secretary for the board. She not only brings experience to the position, but also a great deal of enthusiasm.
Mm-hmm.
She's a valuable member of the board's exec team, and I think it would be great if she'd serve another year.
Awesome. So we have Jennifer's name placed as secretary. Do we have a second for that? Sherry?
I second the nomination.
Terrific. All in favor of Jennifer continuing on as secretary, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. There's your slate of officers for the next year. And I will say, from my perspective, I've just truly enjoyed working with each and every one of you. The new members that have come on board have really brought some great credentials to the board. We had a very successful budget season last year. I expect the same this year. And I couldn't be happier with the effort, output, and commitment you folks make every day to the education. I am absolutely amazed at all you put into it as volunteers. So thank you very, very much. All right? Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, pleasure.
All right. Madam Chair, it's yours.
Okay.
The meeting is yours.
I'd like to thank Rob for his support of the Board of Education in the past year. With that, I would like to call the November 21st meeting of the Board of Education to order. And the first item on your agenda is if we could review and approve the November 7th minutes. When you've had an opportunity to look at them, if I could get a motion to approve. Any motion to approve the minutes? Penny? May I have a second? Sherry? All those in favor? Any opposed? And I think there's a few abstentions. Okay. Moving on, if we could review and approve the agenda for this evening's meeting. Got to get a motion. Hazel?
Motion to accept.
Second. Sherry? All those in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. Okay. The next item on our agenda is comments from the public. To ensure the public's right to be heard, the board has set aside time during the meeting for public comment. 2 minutes will be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes to each subject. Do I have anyone who wishes to address the board this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to reports and recognition. And the first item on our agenda is the introduction of Michael Horizon, the new Director of Communications for the board. And Dr. Lutzy will do that introduction.
Yes, I would love to. Thank you. As you know, we've had a position for the last couple of years we called the PICS position, which was the Public Information and Communication Specialist. But nobody knew what PICS stood for. So even I'm struggling with it here. So we had an opportunity to hire a new person into this position and made the decision, I think wisely, that we should name it what it is. And so I'm very pleased to welcome Mike Horizon as our new Director of Communications. Mike comes to us as an accomplished journalist and public relations professional with over 20 years' experience in both fields. Most recently, he's been with Fairfield University in their marketing and communications department as the Director of Media Relations. In that capacity, he oversaw a 3-person department and was responsible for developing successful strategies for supporting the mission of the university. Prior to that, Mike served as the Director of Public Relations at the Bruce Museum in Greenwich, where he oversaw media campaigns that helped raise the profile of the institution, which led to record attendance. In addition to his career as a media and public relations director, Mike has extensive journalism experience. He's written for magazines, newspapers, and online media, and he currently writes freelance articles for Hearst CT Media and has a weekly music column he's been writing for the Norwalk Hour. He's worked in radio. He's been on air with WPKN in Bridgeport, which I enjoy listening to from time to time myself. Okay. And has previously hosted a daily drive time music program on WFUV in New York. Mike has been with us for about almost 2 weeks now. And it's no exaggeration to say he's already had a positive impact on us throughout the district. He's been learning very quickly how to work with our website. He's been getting to know our staff and our community here in New Canaan. He's been working with, with press releases and other pieces, and certainly with the media representatives in town. We've met many of them, and I found that due to the small world of communications and publishing, Mike knew many of them, which I think is a great way to get started. So it's a pleasure to welcome Mike to the New Canaan Public Schools as our Director of Communications.
Thank you, Mike. It's great to have you on board. Thank you. Okay.
And given that Mike has a busy schedule tomorrow, I'm going to let him off the hook
Yes.
tonight. But he will be joining us for some budget meetings and other times throughout the winter as we go. But tonight, I think he's done his duty.
And I just want to say thank you for those kind words. I know you have a very busy schedule tonight, so I shredded my 3 pages of welcoming remarks. But I just want to say I am honored to be here, to join this team, to be part of a school district that's recognized as one of the best in the country. And thank you for your welcoming remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Welcome.
Welcome. Okay. The next item on our agenda is the New Canaan High School track project with Mr. Pastor, Spangler, Murphy, and Benevento.
Moral support?
No, it's more fun. Remember, the budget meeting is coming up soon.
We're going to run 2 things by you. One is a master plan for the athletic fields out front, and then a little bit more detail on the high school track itself. And I shouldn't have to say much more because these three gentlemen are all from the New Canaan Athletic Foundation.
Sorry, Mike?
And they're raising a lot
We
of
can't really hear you very
hear
well.
me?
I don't know if the mic isn't close to your mouth or,
Okay, sorry.
there we go. If you could just bring it a little closer to you, that'd be great.
You must have had taller people here before. Jeez.
Thank you.
So, four of us are here, the three gentlemen from the New Canaan Athletic Foundation. We're going to run through the master plan for the athletic fields, and then a little bit on the high school track rebuilding project. And without getting into any of the detail yet, I'll call on one of you folks on the athletic fields, please.
So, hi, Bob Spangler. I'm here as a father of 3 high school students and a member of the Athletic Foundation. I'm not wearing my town hat at the moment. This is actually the original plan that came in front, I think, of this board, what, four plus years ago. It's not accurate, but it does give you a layout of the high school. And really, we're here as good neighbors. Let's consider this a good neighbor presentation. As far as we know, there's no real approvals required. It's more to inform you what's happening to facilities that clearly help all of the school system, not just the high school. And really, as Mike and Mike, I'll introduce them now, but as they'll attest, this is really about the middle school, the children's, the youth programs, and then maybe the freshmen and JV programs. This is about really expanding the footprint of the high school athletic facility. So I should introduce Mike Benevento is the chairman of the New Canaan Athletic Foundation, and Mike Murphy, as you know, is chair of the Booster Club, and they're really the heart and soul of what's gotten us to this point, which is a plan to expand really in 3 phases. And they were the driver behind the first phase, which has already been completed, which was Dunning Field, and the miraculous work that got done really by all parties to get that done before the football season started. And we're following that up with a second phase. And the principal one that I've been a part of, and while I'm in front of you, is that we are looking to, hopefully, improve the track facility. The track facility, as you know, sits on town land, and the town has, in its 5-year capital plan, the improvements of what I think of as the horizontal, the ground level track itself, so the oval track and the perimeter fencing, but nothing else. And myself initially, and then I was incorporated into the Athletic Foundation, realized that when we looked at that there's really an opportunity to make this a best in FCAC, if you will, but best in county facility, where now it's one of the worst, to be honest with you. And both my boys run, and when you go to these other meets and go to the other high schools, you realize that there really is an opportunity to upgrade the track here. So that's why we're here. This is. We're not building a hockey rink, so this is an inaccurate depiction, but Mike found it and put it in there, so we wanted to at least show you the aerial footprint of what's happening, but this is just about the track as it relates to the high school, because it does abut the track, and one of the things, or does abut the high school land, and one of the things you'll note as we get to the third one, and do I do this? Let's do this. Yeah. Well, first off, So one of the visions is to have this be a broader facility than it is right now. It's an 8-lane oval, and if you ever go to a track meet, which I've been to a number of them, the straightaway is on the wrong side. It's on the Waveney side, so there's no seating there. You have to walk around and just stand and watch the meet. Because when it was originally built, they knew where the sort of prevailing wind was, and they decided to put the straightaway in 1974. I want to say it was in the mid-'70s when it was built. It's been improved upon a couple times, but it's never been rebuilt. This is envisioned to be a total rebuild of the track, and the initial idea is to flip it, and lo and behold, have the straightaway at the high school, so that people can sit and actually watch a meet. And while this is a rendering, I don't know that we'll have that permanent of a structure of seating. It's probably more like what Water Tower Field has, or the visiting side at Dunning, if you think about that. That's probably what's more likely, but this gives you a sense of the high schools behind it, and the seating will be right by the driveway there, and we'll have to put in some guardrails and really make it safe. But the point would be that we'll have seating for roughly 1,000 visitors, which would mean we could run broader meets, whether the athletic department and the town decides, but you could hold FCACs if this gets done in the way that we envision. The actual real results of what we're hopeful to do. So the town, again, has $1.5 million in its 5-year capital plan to redo the surface, totally rebuild the track. As I said, flip the straightaway, so the high school is on the bottom of this drawing, and Waveney Care Center is on the top, or the north side in this case. So as we flip it, what we're going to do is principally have 4 major improvements that will be funded by the New Canaan Athletic Foundation and not the town. So town will do, again, the complete redo of the track. Right now it's at $1.5 million in the budget, subject to be bid out. The actual cost will likely be less, but let's hope that captures all of it. We'll have the seating and the bleachers, and one thing I should note is the bleachers, the firm straight line that's sort of diagonal from the bleachers down past the driveway, that is actually the demarcation between Board of Ed land and town parkland. And so it was my thought to come here because I realized that we're right on your property line. And the good neighbor policy, we want to make sure you're aware that if we put bleachers where we want to put them, they'll be right on the property line. Now, I don't think anybody actually believes, follows that property line, but it is technically Board of Ed land right at that corner. The second item that's really an asset for the town, for the community, is we're going to put lighting, the goal is to put lighting around the track. Now, this is not competition lighting. This is very important for the care center, as you might imagine. It's actually, they have their deed is such that we couldn't put competition lighting, but this is going to be passive lighting that would be, I think of it more like you might see in a LED, but what you might see in a parking lot, which is to be evening running, really for the community, not for the high school. Maybe winter track might do it if it's seasonal, but the real idea here is that in the fall and spring and maybe winter months, if folks are adventuresome, you could run on the track. We'll have them timed on a timer that'll probably be here in the high school, but to be determined really by the town and the Board of Ed. But the idea is that it'll be on a timer and shut down at 9 o'clock, so it won't be disruptive to the residents at Waveney. On the upper left corner is the storage shed. And I only tell you the story because it's true, which is, that's the only reason I'm here. My son's a pole vaulter, and he used to come back and say how disgusting the mat was because it stays out in the weather, 9 months out of the year because there's no storage shed for the mat. And so then you'd go to all these meets and you'd see every single high school has a storage shed except for us. So I said, well, let me see if I can't help them figure out how to get a storage shed. And then lo and behold, we're here. We've advanced a little further than a storage shed. But 2.5 bay, the town's bids it out. Mike's already got a design for it. And so it's relatively modest priced. But there will be a storage shed for all of the, all the track, the hurdles, the mats, and the like will go there. And then, as we've gotten into this plan, you realize that the town, the rebuild's going to strip everything out of that site. It'll be stripped clean because you're going to redesign the track. It needs better drainage than what's there. And when you do that, you're of course going to strip out all the grass that's in the infield. And one of the things that this town needs desperately is appropriate turf fields for a variety of sports. So this has really been sponsored at this point in terms of trying to advance that agenda by the field hockey families, but it's also likely to be for soccer as well. And Mike and Mike are really become experts in turf, and so there's that's an ongoing discussion as to what that will be purposed for, but it really will be on those type of the way I think about it. It'll be field hockey in the fall and soccer maybe for the spring, but it will help to reposition that field for usage for sports associated with the high school, which it does. I know freshman field hockey will go there, but that's about the only thing that uses it now. So it should be a neat asset for the town. No Board of Ed dollars, so you don't have to come back to me anytime soon on that. The town does have the capital item in its 5-year plan. Doesn't mean it'll get approved, of course. Has to run through the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and Town Council, so there's no guarantees. But if that were to occur and the fundraising that Mike and Mike are putting together with all of us at the Athletic Foundation, the goal is to have this started in construction next summer So you think about the cycle. If we get through the cycle, as soon as school is out, and frankly, last track meets are held on or about July 1, the hope is that this can get started. And Mike's already, and Tiger's aware of it as well, but they've already started to get some preliminary budgets together to figure out the price of all these ancillary facilities as well as the track itself. So that's it, just informational. I don't think you actually have to vote on anything, but
No,
thank you for having us.
Well, we might have some questions, though, so thank you. It's, it's exciting as a parent of a track athlete who won't benefit from this, but it'll be nice to finally have something where you could actually watch.
My kids won't benefit from this
I know.
either, as you may know. So.
That's good. That's good. We're impartial
Yeah.
to the outcome. Does anyone on the board have questions? Sherry.
I also just want to say thank you for your work on this, and I do think it's a compelling project, one, because the large numbers of students that participate in the track and field, but also because it is a multi-purpose space, like you said, soccer, field hockey, fifth grade fun run, and other school events. My question was in regards to the turf, and maybe, I don't know if you would answer this,
Yeah, Mike should.
But I know about a year ago there were funds raised for a new turf field, and would those funds be applied here, or how would that be?
Yeah, so
how would that work?
the establishment of the New Canaan Athletic Foundation was, I think what you were referring to was the Ram Spirit Fund,
Mm-hmm.
and that was initially to fund what we call the grass strips in between Dunning and the Water Tower turf. Really, with the experience that I had, both on I'm on the Bucknell Athletics Board. I have been for 10 years. I have a number of friends that started and were very successful at the Darien Athletic Foundation. That was really my impetus to pull this board together and drive a wider all sports, all community effort under the umbrella of the New Canaan Athletic Foundation. So the answer to your question is yes, all of those funds were raised and still reside in an account at the New Canaan Community Foundation. And what this is doing now is a master plan in 3 phases, the first having been the resurfacing of Dunning Field, the second phase, including the track, the grass strips, and the water tower turf, is to basically amplify what was originally raised in what we felt like was a much bigger way, a much more constructive, professional, organized way than the way it was kind of attacked in the beginning, and it was a little bit more grassroots.
Great, thank you.
And like I said, and I've been around to all of the youth families, a number of the high school programs, where just kind of explaining what the Athletic Foundation is and the mission statement. We have a website, and you can go on and tell it really is, and you'll hear me say this a million times over. It's about all sports and about community. It's not. When I presented this to the Board of Selectmen, it's a community asset, and it's about fairness and equality to not the varsity athletes. The varsity athletes get their time at Dunning. It's more about the JV, the freshmen, the youth programs, and creating space and flexibility with the turf fields that allows us to do that. And so. And also to reassure everyone that the monies that were given over the last couple of years into the Ram Spirit Fund have now evolved and are sitting and will amplify the New Canaan Athletic Foundation.
Great.
Other questions? Sangeeta?
Again, I have to say thank you, too, because I think this is a wonderful plan to look at the whole picture, and I like the flexibility you're adding to that to have it be with more than just the track and field. My question was the center portion that you're looking at for doing the turf. Is that just going to accommodate one field, or is that multiple? I don't know how large that area is.
It's large enough to accommodate a full regulation-sized field hockey field and soccer field, but I think the way that we envision it, and certainly that would be a field more likely dedicated to ball sports. I know so much about turf now that I could have you here for hours, and probably the reason I do, and I should note this, one of the smartest things that we did, I think, was hire a turf consultant to help us with all of this. It's a guy that all he does is spend hundreds and thousands of hours a year on turf and has put in turf across facilities up and down the East Coast. So what you'll learn is there's different lengths and different compacts and infills, and in addition to being environmentally sensitive and health sensitive and all of the studies that we did and put in the what they call virgin infill on Dunning Stadium, now we're looking at different lengths and depths for that inner field, and the idea would be to accommodate more ball sports, things that where field hockey balls and soccer balls and things that are running up and down the on the ground all the time versus physical impact. So again, it's just creating flexibility with the multiple fields that we have planned. You can work some of that. So it is a full field for both soccer and field hockey.
Thank you.
Hazel? I just want to compliment all of you about the the details that you've looked at and examined, everything, and also the versatility of this, to be able to have so many things to be able to be done and to happen and to occur, and even especially to recognize the importance of the lighting and have the lighting there to be even better than it is now. Because I thought tonight when I was pulling up, it looked really, it's hard to cross the street even up there. And so I think your thoughtfulness on all of these different parts of it makes it something for us to really feel good about. So thank you from, it sounds like everybody here saying the same thing. Thank you for what you've done. It's appreciated.
Well, there's a lot more work to be done, but we are being very thoughtful about a master plan and, like I said, organizing and attacking in a very professional, organized, and detailed way. I mean, we're a working board that has a finance group, a development group, a marketing group, a alumni relations group, people that had great experiences here that may not still live here but want to give back to the town. And if you go onto the website, we're talking about honoring our past and building for our future. And so we've cast a wide net. We have a lot of work to do, but we're excited about it.
Any other questions? I just had, Penny, go ahead.
This will be an outstanding facility for our community, so thank you. I was just, in terms of the virgin fill, is that being best practices? I'm just kind of curious about it. So what is that comprised of?
It's regular infill today, and I'm probably not the expert to answer this, but I know enough about it. Regular infill today in your turf surfaces are recycled rubber. What we use in Dunning Stadium is EPDM, which is virgin material rubber, so it's not recycled at all. It was manufactured solely for the purpose of its only use going into turf infill.
Oh.
And it's certified, and it's more expensive, but it was something that we felt was important to satisfy any concerns from a health situation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maria?
I was wondering, what is the timing for this project?
So the timing will all be dependent upon how much money we raise in a certain cycle. What's interesting, and this is somewhat obvious, but you only have 3 months to do these, or 2.5 months really, to do these projects when you have to take them offline. So the idea would be phase 2, which would include the track, the water tower turf, and the grass strips in between Dunning and the water tower turf, is planned for next summer. That will be dependent upon whether or not we can raise the full funds that will have to be in place for the town to sign off on those contracts. It's a big contract. It's a big construction project, but you get, in our estimation and the experts that we're working with, upwards of hundreds of thousands of dollars in economies of scale when you do something together like that. And so that's why we're pushing hard to get phase 2 done together in a public and private partnership, as Bob talked about. The town has put in some of their capital budgets, rehabs for the baseline on the track and the existing water tower turf. What we'd like to do is enhance that and get all of these projects done together if those projects get approved by the town. And then there's a third phase that, again, would depend on how much money we end up raising. But our big push is to make sure we get phase 2 done by next summer.
I just had a couple questions. So the town money that you're asking for, that they're looking at, is just to resurface the existing track as it stands today? I'm just going to let you market the program a little bit better.
So the town, well, the town has currently $1.5 million in its 5-year capital plan, and it's actually came from Park and Recs. The actual cost may, if you wanted to just redo this track and not reconfigure it and, just sort of effectively resurface it, it would be much less than that.
Okay.
So it is envisioned, this has not been redone since the late 70s.
Yep.
So it will be a complete rebuild by the town's side.
Okay.
So
the switching of the finish line to the other side of the track and
correct.
expanding the number of
I
lanes.
think the way I think about it is, I guess everything in red will be done by the town. Maybe
Everything
that's
in
the way-
red. That's great.
And
Perfect.
it includes the D zones, which I discovered what that means. That's the end zones on a track.
Okay.
Those will be resurfaced as well,
Okay.
and for all the jumping events.
Okay.
And but the town wouldn't build bleachers, right?
Right.
My guess is it would still be that retaining wall that
Yep.
you have to sit on. It certainly wouldn't put in the lighting. Certainly wouldn't put in the storage shed, and the turf infield. The one thing I should say, and this is not really a Board of Ed, but you all are in the community as well. They've tracked, Steve Benko tracked a number of years ago the usage on the track. I don't know how he did that, but he claims he did. And 75% of the usage is the community. It's not the high school. And I don't know if you ever go out and run, but there's all the community runs on that track, and so the lighting really is a community asset. And the purpose of this is to build a community asset. Certainly will help the school system, which is terrific. That's the original purpose that got us here. But then when you look at it, it really is a much bigger asset than just for the high school or for the middle school.
And if I could add to that was really part of the reason why we pulled Bob was attracted to coming to us. Again, when we were talking about all sports and community, when we look at this campus and the upgrade of all of the facilities, the way that I get a lot of traction in talking to donors and community people, I've been here for 13 years. I have 4 kids in the system. This is really more about enhancing your greatest community asset, the school system and the athletic facilities around it. And at the end of the day, it could be about your property values. So that's where we get a lot of excitement. Certainly, I sprinkle on you're losing the arms race to Darien, and that gets people excited too. But really, it's about community in all sports, and that's why I feel like we have a lot of momentum when it comes to fundraising across the board.
And so when you're raising these funds, because I know I've seen Bob come to the various track and all sports, and you've pitched this idea. How are you segmenting funds, or is it one big pool when you raise it and it'll be for all 3, or how is that working?
Our goal is to have them general purpose funds.
Okay.
That gives you the most flexibility. If somebody wants to direct funds to a specific cause, we generally don't turn them down.
Okay.
But they are the easiest and the best way to make sure that we get the project done together is if we get general purpose funds.
Okay.
Again, because then you're talking about getting into those economies of scale, having all of your manufacturers, your turf manufacturers, your construction equipment, your installation vehicles, everything here at once, and that makes a big difference.
All right, thank you. And I would like to echo Bob's statement. I've been to almost every FCAC facility, and we do have by far the worst facility in the FCAC. So, all right, thank you very much.
And just to ask, is this available on a website somewhere? Is there somewhere people can go to get some information, or do you have one for the?
I have one that we do have a website. We have a full marketing plan that I'm happy to distribute to you as well. It's on the website today. I don't think our full marketing plan is uploaded. We've kind of, as we're in a private part of the campaign, we've held that back a little bit, but I'm happy to distribute that to you.
So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Mike. All right. Well,
That's great.
yeah, we're fortunate to have such committed volunteers in this community, so thank you to everyone.
And, anecdotally, I can support the community use of the track.
Yeah.
Having been called into the high school at all different hours as the high school principal, I don't think there was ever a time, 1, 2, 3 in the morning sometimes, when there wasn't at least one person on that track running with their headlamp on or something else going around. So it really is a community asset, as they described. And I've seen that firsthand for years. It's pretty impressive.
That's great.
Very healthy community.
Yes, that's good. Okay, The next item on our agenda is the health update with Mr. Jay Egan and Mr. Adams. Thank you for being here.
So I would just like to introduce Jay and Jonathan. So speaking of health and moving into healthy habits, it is a pleasure to introduce the two of them. About a year ago, we developed our health committee that consists of all ages, all teachers at all different levels, as well as administrators from elementary all the way up through high school. We've really spent a lot of time taking a look at our current health curriculum, looking at national standards, looking at the two and how they interchange, looking at a lot of research, and that was really what we did last year, was spend a lot of time doing that vertical alignment, and that is strictly what we're going to be talking about tonight, is how we've met that goal, that district goal for last year, and then really moving into what we see as our next steps as a health committee in addressing our goal for this year. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce the two of them, who are well prepared for this evening. So,
thank you, Jill. When I'm done with this health presentation, I'd be glad to repeat the primer that I gave you last year about all different kinds of turf. I have all my samples with me and everything, so I'm glad to stay here, as long as we need to get that all that information out to you. I'm really happy to be here tonight to talk about health education. It's my background is as a health educator. I've been involved in New Canaan as the coordinator for health education since 1993, actually. And I'd just like to say a few things about health education and then introduce Jonathan. But I think health educators are people who are committed to helping young people develop a healthy lifestyle. And young people are bombarded with negative messages all day long in all the media and things that advertising, a lot of different things that are addressed at helping them shape negative values. Health educators, I think, are engaged in counter-advertising. So we're engaged in getting positive messages out there and trying to get as much market share and market voice of positive messages as we can. And that's, I think, the way our teachers think about it, and I think that's why they're so passionate about the work that they do. So, that statement that we have is, I think, a very important statement from the Carnegie Foundation, that no knowledge is more crucial than knowledge about health, for without it, no other life goal can successfully be achieved. I think we all know that, our most precious thing that we have is our health. So you want to get to the next, can you answer that? So these are the people that are comprising this, our health education research committee. Some of them are here this evening. Steve Bedard, who is assistant principal at Sachs Middle School. 12 years ago, we hired Steve as a health and physical educator. Steve had a lot to do with the development of some of the programs you'll hear tonight that are going on at the high school. He's done all right since he left us at Sachs. Christina Orlando is here. Christina Orlando is in her 18th year as health educator at Sachs. She's a very passionate person. She's passionate about health and passionate about young people. Do you want to put the goals up? The goals of our presentation tonight are up on the board. And I think the thing that we are really trying to do tonight is to give the board and the community an understanding of effective health education curricula, and Jonathan is going to speak about the skills-based approach that we have, talk to you a little bit about how we met the 2015-16 district goals, and then provide a snapshot of the skills that are evident within our curriculum and give you an idea of what we're going to be doing moving forward. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Jonathan Adams. Jonathan is his 7th year as a health educator at Sachs. He's in his 2nd year as an instructional leader for health and physical education. And I'm proud to say that I hired Jonathan. And when we hired Jonathan, the only thing that I made sure that everyone understood about Jonathan is that he wasn't going to be satisfied to not just be a health educator, but he has a wide interest in curriculum and teaching and learning. And so I think Jonathan is a great asset to our school district in all of those ways, and I'm looking forward to hearing his presentation this evening.
You know, I guess in the spirit of Thanksgiving, I'd first like to also give some thanks myself too. First, I'd like to thank just the members of the Health Committee for their just ongoing efforts that they have actually shown, as well as the work that they continue to do within the field of just health education. Secondly, I'd also like to bring back that thanks to Jay, as well as Dr. Carenti too, just for giving me the opportunity to be a part of a leadership team that I deeply respect in this district. And then lastly, I would like to just thank the Board of Education and Dr. Lutzy as well too for just giving us this opportunity to present the work basically that we've done within health education that impact our students. So with all of that said, with all of that said, I'd like to start just to begin to explaining basically a skills-based approach that we've taken as a committee that actually helps us to maintain, further develop, and enhance the health curriculum in general. As we think about health education, I'm sure we could probably all think about as well too some health classes that maybe we have been a part of when we were back in school. And most health education programs around the United States, if you look at, have placed more emphasis on ensuring that students learn information rather than developing the skills to apply that information. Here at New Canaan Public Schools, we are placing more emphasis on a skills-based approach, which is going to be introduced to you in a moment. But as evidence that the research shows us is that this approach here leads to higher levels of behavior change in students, has a greater ability for students to take the knowledge and skills outside the classroom, and as well as aims to improve their ability to apply their learning throughout the rest of their life as well. So a skills-based approach has several components, and it first starts obviously with any curriculum review process too, but one that is planned and sequential. So when we look at this approach too, we want to know and ensure that we've thought about a lot of the informed decisions that we make based on the information that we've gathered that's going to guide our overall curriculum process. We also want to make sure that it's sequential, that there's a logical order that is taking place and it builds upon prior learning from year to year. Next is that it is comprehensive. Comprehensive goes to a wide variety of topics about health and health information. And I'm going to talk to that in a little bit more detail in the next slide, but it is an important component within this approach too. We want to provide students with the most current and up-to-date health information that there possibly is, and as we know, we could probably read about a new health issue or a new health trend that has come out as well, and we want to make sure that we are giving students the ability to access reliable and valid information that brings home the most up-to-date information. And it's as well our job as lifelong learners too to continue that journey with them and be able to look at that information as being current as also up to date as possible. And on top of that, we want to make sure that it's relevant. And you know, traditional health education basically builds upon a lot of future outcomes that might not be all that relevant to students today. And a skills-based approach that we're providing students here in New Canaan focuses more on present outcomes that can impact them, their lives today. And it also is proven to be more effective within teaching young adolescents. The last one too, which is also very valuable, is that a skills-based approach is adaptable. And it's adaptable because of these constant ever-changing things that happen within health that we see within our society and within individuals too. We can easily have these skills that are pretty much concrete within our overall approach, and the content or the concepts are easily transferable to those skills being taught. So without further ado as well, we've, as a committee, developed a vision and a mission together that we feel is extremely valuable, that we are striving to achieve and meeting these district goals that we've also had. So our mission is to maintain and enhance a skills-based, student-centered curriculum with the ultimate goal of producing health-literate citizens capable of making informed decisions to lead a healthy lifestyle. That there's a handful of information in a mission statement that we have and that we strive to achieve. And I want to break it down for you into several areas. And it first starts with the National Health Education Standards and Skills. Something just to know is that the state of Connecticut does not have state standards based on health education. They recommend to use the National Health Education Standards as best practice. And these standards are also in line with the skills that we're going to be talking about as well. So as a foundational overall approach here that we have, it all starts with core concepts, what students know. And the knowledge that they have is very important, and it's very valuable as well. And these concepts build upon this comprehensive approach to health education that promotes several areas that relate to an individual's health. So it will promote an alcohol, tobacco, and other drug-free lifestyle. The comprehensive approach basically promotes healthy eating and physical activity, mental and emotional health, personal health and wellness, safety and injury prevention, prevent violence, as well as disease prevention. Together, a standalone, just for the knowledge alone, would be a traditional health education program, which is just a wealth of information that students receive. And I can tell you that that is not only what we do here in New Canaan. We provide students with also what is important of what they need to be able to do. And as a result of that, we see the skills being introduced here that are very relative to the National Health Education Standards that we have, and it starts at that foundational level of those core concepts and learning those concepts too, but then teaching them these skills through each of those lenses that we see as being promoted in a comprehensive approach. So starting there too, we see that analyzing influences, analyzing both positive and negative influences that students may face regarding their health. Accessing information, valid and reliable health information, not just relying on Google to answer all of their questions. Building upon students' interpersonal communication is such a valuable skill, and yet a skill that teaches them also assertiveness skills and the value of I messages and the value of their body language and tone of voice when speaking not only just to peers but other members as well that they may encounter throughout their life. Decision making and the value of decision making and learning certain elements of how then they can evaluate a decision that they made and how it could impact their health. Goal setting is such an important skill, and a skill that I think we need to continue to teach students because some of the most successful people that we look at in the world have goals that they set for themselves every single day. And I'm going to share with you in a moment some of the goals that our students have in health education as well too, and what they do with those goals to actually experience just a glimpse of success throughout the experience they have with us in health education. And then we have self-management and advocacy too, the ability for students to manage and enhance and practice these health-enhancing behaviors in the classroom so they could utilize those behaviors outside the classroom and in the real world. And advocacy too, it is such a great thing when we actually see students stand up and advocate for a decision that they made that is impacting their health in a positive way, and that they can attest to that as well too with some of the work that they put forth for us. You know, a great example of this too is that knowledge with the absence of the application of the skills results in a very low level of positive health behavior outcomes. So incorporating and infusing these skills with the knowledge that we also want students to know is an important approach. And in 5th grade, just for a quick example, we start off part of our unit and give students a very, very simple quiz, which is common sense ways of what they feel is important to someone's health. And I give them this quiz, and it's very simple. It's yes or no. So it would start with basically, it is important to wear your helmet when riding a bicycle to protect yourself. It is important to eat a variety of fruits and vegetables to maintain a healthy diet. And students would answer these questions, yes or no. And, you know, it is important also to wash your hands for at least 20 seconds to be effective within germ spread and prevention of sickness. And as a result of the quiz that I give them, of the knowledge that they currently have, almost all students score 100%. And basically what we can say is then, if we are just the traditional health education program, we'll then go on to the next class. They're done. However, it's a remarkable and really an amazing overall thing is that when I turn around and I actually turn it to the application, so I turned myself around and I asked all the students to stand up. And then we base on it around the application of this behavior too. And I would start with, as students are standing, and I'm not looking, but I would say, sit down if you have not worn your helmet while riding a bicycle before. Or sit down if you haven't eaten a fruit or vegetable today. Very simple things. Sit down if you actually haven't washed your hands today. And when I do this with 5th grade, it's interesting because I see them at 9th period. So it's interesting, but also a little alarming, right? But as I turn around, what I notice is that if not all students are all sitting down by the end of that. So they may pass the quiz in terms of the knowledge, but the knowledge itself is just, it really doesn't hold any weight if we don't have the application of the skills present teaching them. Together and combined, it really builds upon what is known as health literacy, and this is students' ability to transfer the information and gather that information and turn it into what we like to call functional knowledge. It is applicable to them and applicable to their lives and how they can actually take those skills and start using them. Together as a combined approach that we look at here too, from our mission that we have as well, is that it is producing and preparing students as critical thinkers and problem solvers, responsible and productive citizens, self-directed learners, and effective communicators. These are just 21st century skills that we're talking about. And some that are so important just when you think about the value of health that we put not only on just our own lives, but the lives of our students. So with all of that, we have continued some work and to met a district goal from the 2015-16 year, which was to review the K-12 health curriculum to assure vertical alignment and determine if revisions are needed. I could tell you, and Jay and I could both stand here and say that we've met that goal. And we've used a particular framework in mind, and one of them is it's called the Health Education Curriculum Analysis Tool, or the HECAT. This is a curriculum framework tool that's developed by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, in partnership with other health education experts around the country, representing different educational agencies or school districts, colleges, and national organizations as well. The HECAT is aligned to the National Health Education Standards and is based on the characteristics of an effective health education curricula that help young people adopt and maintain health-enhancing behaviors. This is a fantastic framework. We've utilized it in several ways, and really it's a great way to just kind of take that framework and mirror it up against already what you currently have in place. And you can kind of see, as well as meeting the needs of the community that we have, and you can kind of look at what we have. We've identified certain strengths that we are currently already doing, and then we've also identified a few gaps too. So we've analyzed this, and really we've analyzed it through the skills that are being taught, as well as the performance indicators that students currently know and are able to do as a result of our curriculum and instruction. As a result of that, we've researched best practices in health education, and we're making informed decisions to guide that process together as a committee when we get together as well. And too, one thing just to mention about the committee, we meet periodically, but the work that's being done happens also a lot outside of those committee meetings. And a lot of that work too is to attest the, a lot of the people that Jay had mentioned earlier as well, a part of that. But also this process is going to help us to guarantee to meet that goal in terms of having that vertical alignment K-12 that's aligned to the National Health Education Standards. Basically, some of the skills that we've identified being addressed in health education curriculum currently that we have. Now, I'm not going to go through each of the grades here, but I will give you a snapshot of just some of those grades here. You can see that what's in yellow there are those of the skills that we're talking about, right? The goal setting or self-management that you can see. And then in the green there are the concepts. And these skills, you can see, are being repeated throughout several grades that are a part of a skills-based approach, and that's how it should be as well too, because we want to teach to the skills through the different lenses that we have at different points in students' lives as well. So one example that I can give basically is in 6th grade, students focus on the skill of goal setting. The skill of goal setting in a way where we really just present to students an idea that they have of something they want to achieve. And our goal for them as teachers, and the other Sachs middle school teacher who was here today, Christine Orlando as well, the only goal that really we want them to have for this as teachers is to experience a glimpse of success through this process. We have a short window to really be with students. It's taught on a quarterly basis at the middle school. So providing them with this is really something that, you know, we want to give them that glimpse, or we want to give them that experience that they can. So these are really short-term goals that we're talking about, but they come up with ideas. And some of these ideas are fantastic. They, you know, they really excite us as teachers. They come up with ideas saying, you know, I want to be a better student, or I want to eat healthier, and I want to exercise more, or so on and so forth. And they come up with these great ideas, and really what we tell them is that, you know, these are fantastic ideas, but the success rate of you achieving that is actually extremely low. And it's our jobs to teach them the skill of this goal-setting process so that they can experience that success. And really what we break down to is that it's a simple question. It's basically, well, how are you going to achieve that? What are you going to do? And we break down what is known as a SMART goal statement. And we provide students with this skill of developing this idea into a specific, measurable, attainable, and relevant overall goal that they can achieve in a timely fashion. They evaluate this process that they actually have, and then they realize that, okay, you know what, I'm actually going to run for 20 minutes, 3 days a week, maybe on that nice track soon. Thank you. Anyway, you know, as they come across this too, and then we see that, and once they actually develop that skill and we see that it's written down and they have this overall tool, well, then they actually go about and they try to put it into practice. And when they come back into class, they actually have to answer an evaluation. And I tell them that, listen, this is up to you. Your health is in your hands, and it's really what you do with it. So when they come back to evaluate certain questions based on the goals that they've set out to achieve, it really goes into the context of, did you face any barriers? How could you overcome those barriers that you faced as well, too, if you didn't achieve that goal? Was it realistic enough for you? Some students come up with the most grandiose ideas and goals. I'm going to do 1,000 push-ups in every single day. And, you know, these are great and fantastic ideas, but we need to bring them back down in terms of what is realistic for you to achieve. Because if we just leave them with that, well, then they're really setting themselves up for failure and not success. In 8th grade, really quickly, a snapshot that we have is that we build upon interpersonal communication through the lens of alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana. We teach them through this content. And then really one of the overall skills that we see developed as well through interpersonal communication is how they learn the skill of assertiveness and eye messages and eye contact and body language and tone of voice, because they really practice that through refusal skills. And they are presented into a very hypothetical situation in our class, where they pick out of a bag of different topics, basically of where is this situation taking place, who might be offering this particular drug, as well as then what refusal skill are you going to demonstrate. And as they come across with this, they set up a dialogue as well, and they continue to practice with their group, and then they go up and they present in front of the class within that. Because they need to realize that they're getting into a transition year, which is going to be very stressful as well, and by the time they graduate high school, they're going to be surrounded by a conversation with, or if not offered, one of the 3 drugs that we talk about in our class. And preparing them for that experience is so vital. And then through the culminating activity is that they write a self-advocacy letter for themselves and to themselves, based on some of the consequences that they would have if they make the wrong decision, as we evaluate the decision-making process with them. And this is a letter that they have. It's a very meaningful letter as well, too, and it's really where they see themselves in the future. And they could see certain barriers that might come across that way if they choose the path of basically that content that we've discussed of alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana. Now, I don't teach at the high school, but we've actually, there are members of the high school that are on the health committee as well, and they've shared a snapshot of some of these skills too. And one that is really fascinating to me, and I think it's fantastic. In 9th grade, through the lens of mental and emotional health, they developed the skill of self-management and advocacy through stress management. They look at overall positive and negative effects of stress and how to deal with them positively, and how can it impact their health in a positive way. And as they kind of access information and look at some reliable information in terms of giving them those skills, they develop a video presentation that is presented to the class, and then the class has to practice that skill together. Because we have to understand too, as well, in 9th grade, this is a transition year, and it probably, as well, is a very stressful time for these students. In 12th grade as well, too, what they have is a guided independent study, where students are able to choose from a list of topics that the teachers have based around wellness. And as they access information that is valid and reliable and continue to meet those overall requirements of this assignment too, they're able to take what is done in that assignment and start to apply it and get themselves ready for college and career readiness. Something that is going to happen outside of, not just in 12th grade, but after 12th grade. And as they look at that, then they present to the class and they talk about how then they could utilize these overall skills and how they can also advocate to enhance their overall health as well. An example that we have basically as we looked at and through the HECAT process, that curriculum analysis framework, we have certain results that we found from the Center for Disease Control, also presented by the National Center for Health Statistics. It reports the leading causes of death and by age group. And what we see here is actually, was quite eye-opening to us, which is unintentional injury across all ages. And the CDC reports that injuries and violence affect everyone, regardless of age, race, and economic status. In the first half of life, more Americans die from violence and injuries such as motor vehicle crashes, falls, unintentional poisoning, etc., than from other causes such as cancer, heart disease, or the flu, making injury the leading cause of death in the ages 1 to 34. A list of examples of unintentional injury might fall into just basic bicycle safety, road and traffic safety. We hear about distracted driving, but actually what has come to the surface now is distracted walking, which is amazing when you think about it as well too, but it's a little alarming because that actually hits our middle school students when you all see them walking just on their cell phones on a street, in a busy street. And other ones as well too, just such as playground safety, poisoning prevention as well, and it goes on. But we've identified gaps in our curriculum where we've identified the topics of personal safety, injury prevention, and violence prevention, where we feel that through this, that we should be providing students more of that lens and developing those skills through those lenses as well. The next steps that we have is the district goal that is set this year was to begin the revisions on the K-12 health curriculum based on the crosswalk between the National Health Education Standards and our current curriculum. We are drafting a scope and sequence K-12 with an emphasis on K-4 units of study. Currently, right now, we do have health education K-4, but through the discipline of physical education, where students primarily learn about nutrition and physical activity. And really what we want to provide through this process is an assured experience for all students K-12 with a comprehensive health education approach. We're drafting units of study with a focus on the information that we gathered, that was just mentioned about personal safety, injury prevention, and violence prevention. And we also want to ensure that the health information that we are producing related to our curriculum will be transparent to parents and the community on the district website as well as teacher websites. These are all parts of these goals and these steps that we are taking, and I really can't thank the committee enough for their ongoing efforts, and also thank all of you for the opportunity to present tonight about the work that we are doing. So we would like, Jay and I as well, too, to take any questions that you may have at this point in time.
Yeah, okay.
Stand up with me, Jay.
Okay, I'll be there in a minute. I just want to mention one other thing. There's another person here that's done a lot of work with the 512 group, but particularly with the 912 group. That's Ari Rothman. Ari supervises health and physical educators. We've had multiple years of professional development activities where Ari has been a very valuable resource to us. So I forgot to mention him when he's not on the committee, but he's there in spirit.
Well, thank you for your presentation tonight. Having an 11th and 12th grader, I've had kids that have gone almost through the entire program, and as a parent, I appreciate all the information that they've received over the years, sometimes motivating, sometimes horrifying, but always, I think sometimes getting it from a third source or a secondary source just makes it more impactful for them, because I know if anybody's kids are like mine, if I say that, they don't necessarily listen to me. Anyway, I'd like to open it up for questions or comments. Hazel?
I'm so impressed with the comprehensive way that you handle this, and it just goes back and repeats in a variety of ways to reinforce its wonderful educational curriculum. Do you foresee having any opportunity to do some measurement of changed behavior? And I don't have any suggestions on it, obviously, just keeping track of any of the things that's over 10 years, things might change, and can you see the impact 5 years or change is it measurable in any way? I guess that's my question.
I would say that the only thing that we have currently in place is how we measure student growth as well through wonderful TEPL document that we have, as well as teachers too, and we measure that through the beginning and the end of their health education experience. I'd say that as a committee too, we can look further into developing more of a long-term look at that approach, but right now, no, we don't have anything in place.
Sherry?
Well, first of all, I just want to say I know now why Jay took credit for hiring you, because that was a very impressive presentation. And I mean, you didn't look at one note, and the depth of the presentation was very impressive. I actually have a couple of different questions. So my first question is, and you kind of referred to this, but keeping the curriculum and your students updated on health trends and the challenge that the proliferation of Google and fake news and the internet has on what you're teaching the students versus their understanding. Can you just kind of address that, like how you rise up to meet that challenge?
Sure. When we look at accessing information is really the skill that we're talking about, and we want to make sure as well, and I think it goes to the point that's really great in terms of the independent study that's done as well. And really, if students just go out and they just find information that's out there, well, really, they need to give us a little bit more information about the source that they've actually got it from as well. And they learn this skill as well, not just through the vehicle of health education, but through the media center and the library too, to make sure that they are researching valid and reliable sources. But they need to be able to explain really well, who owns the website? Where does the website come from as well too? Who actually created the website? Is that a reliable source? Do they have a reliable health background? Or is it someone in college that is just creating something because of what they feel, as whatever it may be? So, as long as they answer this list of questions as well too, that I think is set forth for them, well, then they realize how much more reliable and valid that it is. We also have other tools that we would give students as resources too, to actually go and look up. So we have a list of those as well, as we kind of guide them through that process, and it's not just solely up to them, but we also give them concrete examples of basically what to look for within some of these websites as well. We have, as health and physical educators too, a national organization called the Society of Health and Physical Educators as well, which is where we gather a lot of the information that we get to keep ourselves current and up to date as we can. So we really just provide students with a lot of those questions related to how they are going to make sure that resource is valid and reliable.
And can I just, one more follow-up question?
Yeah.
So I love the focus on the functional knowledge, so important. And my question is, actually, I recently I was doing some research specifically on girls, but the CDC put out a survey by state, and according to this Connecticut Risk Survey, it showed that only 4% of Connecticut teen girls feel comfortable talking to a teacher, counselor, or parent when they're undergoing stress or anxiety. And so I'm wondering, how do you incorporate, like when you're focusing on the functional knowledge, what to do, kind of how you incorporate, where to go for help? Or
Absolutely. Accessing that information doesn't just go on the website as well. It's from a multitude of sources. So it's what individuals in the school can we go to that we can trust. And it's really, one of the common middle school unhealthy behaviors is a problem talking to parents. And really giving them that skill of just not only what information to access, but also the interpersonal communication skills of them being able to assert themselves and talk confidently, not just with their peers, but also with adults and all other adults as well. So, it's hard to go ahead and practice that skill when you're in a classroom of a whole bunch of peers. But really, we have to give students that ability and that time to practice these skills, and that's something that we focus on. So it's not just teacher-centered, it's a student-centered approach where they have opportunities to practice these skills. So they could go to someone as well, too, that they trust, and that they can identify someone that they do trust also. So, I mean, hearing that statistic as well is, something that we know is a middle school behavior that is there, and we do provide them with those resources that they have in school and build upon those skills to learn outside the classroom.
I'd just like to add one thing to that. Something else that we think is very important is transparency with respect to the content of the curriculum. And one of our goals is to, have this curriculum be on the school website, have the teachers have their curriculum up, and really work together with the parents on these difficult issues, because that issue of social media, where kids are getting information, again, to have it be an assured experience for all the students, not only doesn't only mean that the students are all hearing it, but that the parents are all understanding how important it is, and how these can really threaten the overall mental health and physical health of young people. So I think that's another piece that we have to all work together on this.
Maria?
I understand with that HECAT tool, they do suggest community health professionals to be part of the team when revising curriculum, or possibly faith-based community members, and also PTC-type organizations. So I'm wondering, how are they being involved in the drafting and forming a curriculum that reflects community values and issues that are specific to our community?
I can answer that. I'll answer that. So I think that the curriculum, we are revising an existing curriculum, and on a number of occasions we've reached out over the past revisions, the past 5 or 8 years, to get a sense from the community about important issues, sensitive issues, and how the community feels. And what we've done, what we think we know about the community, I think it's true that we have a comprehensive curriculum that gives all the necessary information, especially on sensitive topics. We don't give all the information that is there to give, and so we think that we have on any sensitive issues related to health education, that we have a middle of the road approach at this point and going forward.
I am wondering, I think, Jill, you mentioned Aaron's Law, so I was wondering how that will be incorporated into the K-12 curriculum, especially in the younger grades.
So certainly the state of Connecticut published some guidelines in August, so it wasn't much time to give us that opportunity to really utilize it for professional development in August. So during the November PD, Susan Bliss, who you've all met, had an opportunity to kind of go through some of those guidelines and what the law all means with all of our mental health professionals, with our psychologists and guidance counselors and social workers. We've had long, lengthy conversations as a health committee, and we are trying to figure out appropriate and developmentally appropriate ways in which we would integrate some of the simple things that you would start with kindergarten, or just even trust triangles, and what are trust triangles, and who are the adults that you can speak to, who are friends that you can speak to. So we're really taking a slow approach, because we want to make sure that it ties in with our current health curriculum, and that we're just not going in and teaching something as a standalone, because we just don't think that would be very appropriate for our students. So we are very cautious as we're moving forward in being compliant with the new outline of the law. It's broken down into bands and what should be taught in each of those bands. But we also understand that we have to be developmentally appropriate, and that we don't want things to just be a standalone. So we will figure out ways in which it will probably be a phase-in for us, and beginning with some very basic things in kindergarten, talking about those kind of trust triangles, and maybe there'll be a little bit more in that kind of health unit that happens in 5th grade, and then something else in the high school area, and that's really what we'll probably approach for this year. And then as we continue to develop and revise our curriculum, we'll have to figure out where it makes most sense to fit in. So we just don't want it to be just something that's a standalone. It just wouldn't seem to make sense to our students.
Penny?
Thank you very much for all the comprehensive approach to it. It's a very important curriculum. And I was just wondering where I felt, and I might not be the most up to date, that there's a little bit of a gap between the students' experience you have at New Canaan High School up through your senior year. You have nice summer, a lot of times in New Canaan, and then you go to college, and it's a lot of these students get hit with very different programs in education about sexual violence, sexual education, alcohol, and it's all of a sudden a vastly broader, scarier world to students. And we've heard that, the Board of Ed has heard that when we met with returning college freshmen. So I was wondering what we were doing in this curriculum to bridge that gap, and maybe places where we might not be bridging it, to make certain that parents know what we are doing and what we are not doing on really important areas like sexual education, so that they can choose to fill in or not fill in. I wanted to jump right in, Jack.
So one of the things that Bill Egan and I have been talking about is a day-long seminar that would happen for seniors between the end of AP exams and the beginning of the intern experience. And we thought that the things that you just mentioned and the sensitivities, or the type of courses that the kids get when they go off to college with respect to keeping themselves safe and all the ways that you mentioned, is something that we would like to start to talk with them about before they left New Canaan High School, and before they, so it's going to give them a little more time to start to think about things, and to maybe be a little more prepared for all these changes. Because what you're mentioning is something that is really, I think it's it's an important issue for all of our kids as they go off to college. I think that change that takes place from a homogeneous environment where they all know their friends and it's very safe, to other environments that they don't know everybody, they're making new friends. It's a lot more of a transition than we may give it credit for. So I think if that's what you're speaking about, I think that's something that we've been talking about, and that's one of the ways that we would do this. I think the knowledge component, though, back to the skills versus knowledge, I think the knowledge component is there. I think that continuing to work with young people to develop refusal skills and self-advocacy skills is just really all we can do. And I don't want to go back to the transparency of the curriculum and the awareness of the parents, but I have to. I have to think that this is a problem for the educators and for parents in our community to understand that, going off to college is not an end of anything, it's just the beginning. And we all need to work together to make sure that that is as successful as it can be through a lot of different ways. So I don't know if I exactly answered your question, but that's my best try.
Well, I think it's a difficult question. Certainly when you read about what happens on college campuses, it's a lot of times it's the freshmen, more oftentimes the freshman girls, who end up in trouble. And so it's a small percentage that happens to, but certainly we want to do everything we can in the district to prevent that happening to any of our graduates.
Sangeeta?
Well, first, again, I have to comment on how comprehensive and informative this presentation was. Excellent. And I'm very happy to see that we're doing a skills approach, so it's not the traditional just knowledge-based, and that you're including things like mental and emotional health. That's something that even the colleges are really emphasizing, with their students. My question comes, I know that the committee's worked really hard in putting this all together in the format of what is done at what grade level. My concern is, as I've heard other professional talks, about when kids get exposed to some of these issues with tobacco, alcohol, and marijuana and stuff, the age when they first get exposed is getting lower and younger and younger. And it's always best to get them before they actually get into that situation to give them the skills. And I see that we've got them here at 8th grade, and I was wondering, is it a possibility, or have you thought about maybe putting it a little earlier at 7th grade, just because I know kids are starting to get, not all of them, but some of them are even that young, and it's always good to get them younger and really get that information before they have to be put in a situation where they don't know what to do.
That is part of our revision process as a committee, and really what we know is that one of the biggest things that we can do is to delay the onset of that. And really, the sooner that we actually start to teach students about these issues, the better chance that they have of happening later on in life. So this is part of the revision process as well. We noticed that. And these overall issues as well is something that can start even at the elementary level, all the way up into the young middle school level, and then continue to be reinforced through later middle school and high school. So it is part of that process that we are looking at, yes.
Great.
Penny?
So I had one other question which I wanted to address. I was wondering what we were doing and whether or not we had enough resources to support this curriculum with respect to drug education. And because we have had a number of recent graduates actually die of heroin overdoses. And you all are the experts. I just remember my sons telling me that one of the most effective things that they heard were when the school they were in, which happened to be the American School in London, brought in recovering addicts to talk to them. And so I don't know, when we're looking at this curriculum, if there's a way to kind of enrich it by bringing in some people to talk to the students. I'm not suggesting that that's the best, but I just want to make certain. I think in light of recent events, I think we ought to do something if we can. I'd love to support it with Board of Education resources.
Last year, we were fortunate to have Chris Herron come and speak to our student body. And Chris Herron is a former professional basketball player who was from a community like New Canaan. Probably many of you know the story. And he progressed from, as he says, standing with a solo cup at a keg to being a heroin-addicted professional basketball player for a number of years. And he spoke to our student body. And the thing was good about that, I think, is we knew in advance he was coming, and the teachers spoke to the classes about his issues and his challenges. And then they were able to process that after they heard him speak, and that really piqued the students' interest. And so then the teachers were able to come back and talk about these issues related to addiction and the progression of alcohol use to opioid addiction, and then other ways that the opioid addiction can happen through pain pills and so forth, to the heroin, which is really the problem now because of the purity of the heroin. So that was an opportunity where we did have the speaker, and we were able to use the speaker to enhance the educational process. So I think that's the value of the speakers, and I think any way that we could enrich the curriculum with those resources is good. We really felt like that was a very positive thing for our student body last year when we had an opportunity to do that.
And I guess what I'm saying is, rather than have that be kind of a, maybe a one-off or something that has to be specially planned every year, I'd love to see that type of experience built into the program, maybe with bringing in different speakers, but as a placeholder of some kind for a speaker on a regular basis, one that you all would determine met best practices.
And I think that's really important, because anytime we're bringing a speaker within the district, we want to make sure that the message that they are sending is in alignment with our curriculum and that it is integrated. So I know that Darlene and Susan Bliss and Jay and Jonathan, myself, we attend many different functions within our own community here, whether they're put out by New Canaan Cares or even outside of the community when we know of these speakers that are going into the community. And so that we go and we listen to them and we try to understand, is this going to be somebody that we would also want to bring within the district? Is this the same kind of message that we would want to be sent to our kids? Does it relate and does it integrate within our curriculum? So it's always very important to always vet the people that you're bringing into the district. And some of it is also the professional learning that we need to engage our teachers in. So make sure that they have all the resources and the knowledge that they need as well. So.
And really, if I could just talk to the point of that, which is, some of the examples that we currently do at the middle school is utilizing some of the internal resources that we have. And I've had the pleasure of working with an outside organization, New Canaan Cares, and they develop what's known as the Leadership Coalition of high school students. And we have integrated within certain areas of the curriculum where these high school students are able to come to our health classes and teach students about the transition to high school and the pressures that they may face and how to deal with stress. And that's coming directly from a sophomore at New Canaan High School, delivered to them in that approach. We've also utilized Officer Deek as a school resource officer to come in and talk about the dangers of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs as well. He puts forth a fantastic presentation for our students that they have an array of questions with that we continue to use on a continued basis. As much as we can to provide them for that. So that is something that we integrate within in terms of using outside resources that really are just at our disposal. So that's.
Maria?
I just want to say, I think one of the best things about that speaker that came last year was I think you had an evening session as well where parents could come with their children, and I think that's really critical. I think I know more parents that their children do feel comfortable talking to them, but sometimes you need a little starter, and just knowing what's being covered that day in health or having a speaker is really, really powerful. I mean, if the end goal is to help them grow into healthy adults, I think whatever it takes to get that conversation going, you know, and I like seeing the transparency of the curriculum on the website. So if we know what's happening on a certain day, you know, it's a great starter at the dinner table if we manage to eat dinner together that night.
A healthy dinner, might I
A
add.
healthy dinner.
And now that Mike is on board, we're looking to continue our work on our curriculum website. So we do have the core areas up there, and we're still working behind the scenes to get our digital citizenship up there as well as our health. So we're working behind
Good
the scenes,
timing.
and we're excited to give some work to Mike to get done.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I just wanted to thank you, and also, you know, I had the opportunity last night to be at a men's addiction facility in Stamford, and the question I asked some of the men last night were, how many of you started using in high school? And every single one of those men there, and there were a lot in the room, every single one of them started in high school or middle school. No one started after that. So the work you're doing is really important for our students, and you know, having a graduating senior, I'm really excited to hear about the potential for this day-long seminar, because I think many of us, you know, we can talk to our kids as much as, you know, and it goes in one ear and out the other, but if you're reinforcing, you know, what they're headed for, I think it can only help. So thank you for all you're doing.
Great job.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
I like that.
I love how Jay described it as the counterbalance to the media.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah.
Okay.
Great job.
All right.
As the room clears, we get a
yes.
statement of accounts.
All right, so thank you, Dr. Keating.
It is tough to follow a presentation like that. Very well done, by the way. So you have the statement of accounts before you tonight through the end of October. We are reconciled with the town, so the numbers you're looking at are reconciled financials. Our $86.2 million budget, we have actually spent 25% of it. We have encumbered 67% of it, so 8% of our budget remains unencumbered, but those are expenses that are generally encumbered throughout the year, and so we do expect to fully expend those funds. We are in the process right now of reforecasting out this current year in preparation for next year's budget, so we will be bringing a transfer before the board probably in January that will align with our budget document that we sent to the town, and it will reflect any transfers that we might have between accounts. We don't expect to have many, though, this year, so I wanted to share with you a document that Dr. Lutzy and I presented last week to the Board of Finance and the Town Council. And really, just to bring it back for a second to last year's budget process for this current year, our biggest expenditure, is in the area of base certified salaries. And that's the area where we've had some variances in the past. So we utilized our tools in Munis for position control and really tied our budget for salaries directly to each position in our staffing plan and assigned a person to each of those positions. And we were able to calculate their current year salary very scientifically based on our contract. And so there's a few areas that we could have potential variances on. And the largest is the turnover savings, degree changes, new hires, we don't know exactly where they're going to come in, and longevity and paid leaves. And so as an exercise for our reforecasting, we wanted to provide the boards with information with regards to how close we were to our assumptions in this current year's budget. You may recall that when we prepared our budget, we had $100,000 in turnover savings that we had presented to the town.
The Board of Finance suggested that we increase that by $300,000 to a total of $400,000 in savings. And so that was an area that we did modify our budget to. We had, basically Gary had provided the boards with some numbers on potential retirees. We had gone from a low of 3 over the last 5 years to a high of 13. We did come in with 11 retirees, and they averaged $35,500 in savings between the new hire and the retiree. And so $390,000 of our savings relates to retirees. And that's an important piece of information because as we move forward with this current year's budget, we're going to want to take a look at the listing of potential retirees so that we don't over budget our turnover savings, but certainly want to make it reasonable in terms of what we might expect to save. With regards to degree changes, I have to thank Jane Kaplan. She provided me with a listing of people who were entitled to degree changes, and she was very close. The budget was $270. We came in at $262, so it's a variance of $8,000. Our new hires, the variance is $44,000. And our longevity was extremely close, again, thanks to Jane, of a difference of $230. With regards to paid leaves of absences, we have a large number of leaves this year, which I'm sure you're keeping track of all those. But and there's some that are paid out because they have accrued sick time, and so we have to actually pay for somebody to come in and cover for them. And then we have other people who are on unpaid leaves, and their replacements are less than what their salaries would be. Overall, the mix of everybody, it's a cost of $11,600 thus far this year. So that in that account, we're going to be a little short. We have money within the other accounts to balance it out, though. So overall, I think the message that we wanted to give to the board tonight is that we don't expect to have a large unallocated balance in our salary accounts this year. We do expect to have a budget that reflected what our actual needs were, and do not expect to have any surpluses in those accounts.
Questions? Thank you, Dr. Keating. Does anyone have any questions? All right. Well, thank you. All right. So we will move on to the action items section of our agenda. The first item to discuss is the 2017-18 budget assumptions, our first read. And before, I think you have in front of you, why don't you, Dr.
I would be glad to speak to it. Absolutely, absolutely right. So you do have a packet in front of you that might still be a little warm. It was hot off the press as we came into the meeting here. And so as such, it is a first read. It's our goals, budget assumptions, and related priorities. As I'm sure you recall, one of the steps in our process of developing our budget is to look at the goals that the Board of Education has approved this past summer, and we identified budget priorities and assumptions based on those goals. Essentially, what are the understandings that we bring to the development of the budget to ensure that it is done in alignment with the Board of Education's established district goals and our efforts and work. Many of these are consistent through the years because, as you know, our goals are relatively consistent at a high level. But how we operationalize these assumptions within the budget document itself really helps to drive our priorities and our vision and the direction of the district. I do have to apologize to my administrative team here on the end. This for them is also a first read, which generally is not the process we like to follow, but it has been a very busy time, and so we worked to get some of these together to be able to begin our discussion tonight. As you know, we have a meeting in 2 weeks, which would be for a second reading with this, and then the following Monday night we have our budget workshop. So we are fast approaching the budget season, so we wanted to get this in front of you to take a look. What I'll do, if it's all right, is hit a couple of the the adjustments or highlights under this, but certainly not read the document to you tonight. I don't think that's a good use of your time. But I would invite you to read through it yourself and think about, again, sometimes it helps to have the goals document right next to you, where you look at the objectives that we have and you can see how these tie back and drive those objectives. And then to certainly contact me directly with any questions or follow-up or suggestions. And when we approach our second read in 2 weeks, we can certainly have that, just have a greater discussion together and make any adjustments or changes, as need be. So our goal number one has been and continues to be focused on our core work of increasing student learning and the ways in which we go ahead and measure that student learning and the purposes therein. So A under that is about preparing all of our students to excel in a dynamic and complex global society. So just very small changes here. The first was talking about our curriculum updating and revision process, and the simple addition here is following the formal process, which is outlined by Dr. Krenti and her CLC, and using a common curriculum template, which is helpful to ensure that each of these pieces we talk about, focusing on depth of understanding, application of knowledge to inquiry, etc., it ensures the consistency across. And Dr. Krenti and I have even been talking about more training opportunities for staff, the number of new staff we've hired in the last couple of years, around the Understanding by Design curriculum template, which is what we've been using for years, and to continue to build capacity in that to empower our teachers to be part of this process. In number two here, simply an addition of a growth mindset, which is something we've been working with our teachers with for a long time. Something we talk about our students, talk about with our students, and it's this belief that we are continuously learning, growing, improving. That the human mind is an amazing thing that can always change and improve and grow. The converse of it is a fixed mindset, which says your capacities are essentially limited at birth. A growth mindset says that we all have limitless capacities. It's about our energies and our direction and our passions and commitments that determine where we go. That small change makes a large difference, I think, in the orientation to the work of learning and teaching, certainly. On B, a highly qualified and effective staff is the foundation of our district's efforts and our success, which continues to be the great work. You heard Jonathan mention TEPL briefly, the great work that we're doing around teacher evaluation, teacher coaching. Another piece to this, which is articulated here somewhere, talks about, it must be under a different one, but talks about, it's under goal 3. Continuing to develop the capacity in our leaders for coaching. And Dr. Krenti began an initiative district-wide around developing those skills with our instructional leadership team and others last year. And we've had great success with that so far. We're looking to continue making that investment to distribute the leadership amongst our instructional leaders around effective teaching and learning and pedagogical practices. And by doing that, we build their capacity so that the ongoing dialogue about our practice continues even when the administrator's not in the room, when the evaluator's not there, because the ILs are there with them, the department chairs are there, the curriculum specialists are there. So developing their ability to coach, provide feedback, all relative to practice, helps to really engender that as into the culture of the school in the day-to-day conversation. And again, Dr. Krenti, you are welcome to jump in at any time. Under C, district resources being purposefully distributed across our district. We added something down here just talking about the need for ongoing reviews and revisions to programs at all levels. Our prior document talked about the high school level, and that's continuing. But we also have been having quite a few discussions about looking at the programs around our K-8 articulation, our K-5 articulation, 5 through 8, in different program areas, and the ways that we are providing the instructional structure to deliver those programs. And are we resourced in the right ways, looking at our staffing, looking at our curricular objectives, looking at our outcomes? We always want to be looking at what we're doing. Are we having the desired effect based on our structure, based on our process? And if not, then making those adjustments. And so in doing these reviews across the district in various times, they may identify a need for reallocation or addition of resources for staffing, for training, materials, or equipment. So this assumption really sort of guides us, or at least kind of points us in that direction in doing that work. Our communications goal. Again, we have a new director of communications on board. We're all very excited about that. And I do believe that we'll be able to take the next step in our development of the use of the website as an effective communication tool. We're also beginning to look at a learning management system which would really be another way of communicating with our students, with our parents. And a learning management system allows us a digital platform to communicate both our assignments, our calendars and homework, all learning expectations. We talk about sharing, sort of what's happening in the class. It helps to open that up so people could log into the system, see what's going on in classes, have a better understanding of what students are expected to know and be able to do. And it also helps to make that learning anywhere, anytime for our students. So you can have the articles, you can have the work, you have the things in the system, which is an online system, generally website-ish, where students could log in, get to those resources, do that work, submit their assignments, what have you, in kind of an anytime, anywhere environment. And so at the high school level, it does dovetail nicely with the BYOD, and certainly with our digital literacy work that we're doing across the district. Again, innovative, research-based work. We're working with our coaching. The goal number 4 is an environment that fosters respect, ethical behavior, and responsible global citizenship. I just became aware that the state is preparing to initiate another security grant, so I just added a little bit about that, just a couple of words. But this, again, we continue doing this work. I think you probably hopefully had an opportunity to read over the weekend about some of the efforts we've undertaken this year in regard to Goal 4 in all of our schools, talking about some of the initiatives underway. And then we go into B under Goal 4, which includes our facilities. We had facilities in Goal 5, if you remember, in the past. We moved it into 4 because it is about a school climate and a safe school climate, but also school facilities that promote the climate and the environment, the things we want. So there's an addition here, the 2 additions. One is, again, just like we're reviewing our programs and looking at our staffing and effectiveness of all of those, we also want to be sure that the maintenance of our school facilities, which includes inside the facility and outside the grounds and the areas right outside, that it's being done by a team of knowledgeable staff. We want to review our facilities maintenance positions to be sure that the right expertise and skills are on board. We've had generalists, and we're taking a look at that to say maybe we'd be better served by having some specialists in some specific areas that could target areas that need repair, areas that need improvement, and that may help us overall, both in the maintenance of the buildings, and it could be a budgetary help as well. We recently hired someone with expertise in HVAC, so heating, ventilation, cooling systems, and we anticipate that that's not only going to be a great service for us so that when things are happening we can get right on the spot and make a difference and fix it, but in the long term we think it'll help us budgetarily as we look at boiler replacements and other things to have someone on staff with that expertise. We're thinking about other possible positions and other ways that we can leverage skills and expertise that way to help us and help our school. The second one here is looking at our custodial staff to ensure that we're sufficiently staffed to manage the square footage that we have for our custodians. We know that the new addition at Saks will be coming online next year. And in anticipation of that, we're going to do a review, again, of the square footage that we have over there, the custodial staff we have, and we anticipate it may result in a request for an additional custodian to manage that need, which is something we did talk about right from the start, that when they asked about new staffing needs with building the addition, we said, while our instructional staff we anticipate being the same because that's in response to the enrollment of students, not the number of classrooms we have, square footage will likely lead to the need for another custodian. But we'll review all of that and have those data for the board to take a look at as well in our discussions. Goal 5 is about stewardship and has been, and it just begins by talking about our responsibility to be good stewards of the district by monitoring and implementing the mandates that we regularly receive and taking care of the district in those ways. B talks about having a fiscally sound, prudent, and transparent approach with our budget development and presentations. And I think you heard the first selectman say tonight that he felt like the budget process went very well last year. I echo his feedback. I think the budget process did go very well, and that's in large part thanks to all of the board members here and your commitment to our discussions together and refining the budget along the way, but also in the community. And whether it's the budget quick notes, it's being present at the meetings, it's being able to have the follow-up conversations, all of that I think helps to generate the trust in the Board of Education and the understanding in the work that we're doing for going towards the transparency. And then, of course, to continue to meet the community's high and increasing expectations for responsive services, excellence in educational outcomes, and fiscal prudence. And to do so, we continue to review and adapt our long-term capital plan. As you know, in the budget last year and the year before, we put in a 10-year capital plan. And then, of course, there's a 5-year version to that. That will remain a 10-year plan, and we'll make changes as we go, as we learn. But we like to do that to signal to the town and others sort of what we see coming down the road, and so that we're prepared when these things do come up. We've had conversations about roofs. A conversation with the parking lot over at South was in there for a long time. I know boilers, oil tanks, other things that we're standing on the tracks and maybe at a distance, but the train is coming. So we want to make sure that everyone knows at which point it's going to arrive. So we use those capital plans to signal those, and of course to keep that communication open. So these, believe it or not, that was a quick overview. But the budget assumptions and related priorities are important for us because they do help to point us the right direction. It also gives us a great opportunity to reflect upon, again, the work we're doing, where we are with the goals, what progress we're making, and what our resource needs will be as we look to implement the improvements that the working towards those goals inevitably bring. So.
Thank you. And as Dr. Lutze mentioned at the outset, this is a first read, so there's plenty of opportunity for people to make comments between now and the next Board of Education meeting. So if I could get someone to move to approve the proposed 2017-18 budget assumptions. Brendan, second. Sangeeta? Okay. So we'll bring this back in 2 weeks for a second read.
Thank you.
All right. The next item on the action items, again, is a first read of the 2018-19 public school calendar. And you have it in your pile of information for this evening. And just so everyone's aware, there'll be about a month between this first read and the second read and hopeful approval, just so people have ample opportunity, but more for the parent community. We have ample opportunity to take a look and if they have any comments or questions. So if I could get a motion to approve the proposed New Canaan Public Schools calendar for 2018-19. Sherry, second. Penny? Okay. And we'll have that second read in about a month. Thank you, everybody. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. If I could get a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Thanks, Jen. Second? Hazel? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Comments from the public? Anyone? Seeing none? We'll move on to announcements and future business. Dr. Lutze.
Sure, thanks. And I wish Jay was still here. I would have, I meant to say this when he was. I want to just take a minute to commend Jay for the great work that he has done leading up to the Turkey Bowl on Thanksgiving. And I just want to let the board know, certainly, the diligence that he's gone through, the efforts he went through to try first to secure a larger venue for this game. You know, there are there's only one stadium in the area that has a really larger capacity than Dunning, which is over at Boyle Stadium. And for the last 2 years, we've had the good fortune to be at Boyle Stadium for this game because it's also been the FCAC championship game. So as the FCAC championship game, they picked the venue, and the FCAC has picked Boyle Stadium because of its size. But there's no longer an FCAC championship game because the state cut down the number of football games that teams are allowed to play to a maximum of 10. And so each conference had a meeting and voted to decide whether they would have 9 games and possibly play in a championship, or have 10 games that are scheduled and not have a championship, because we couldn't go to 11 games. So the decision was made so that all teams could play 10 games to go do away with the FCAC championship and allow each team to have its Thanksgiving rivalry game as its final game. So therefore, it's not just Darien and New Canaan playing on Thanksgiving. Stanford is playing West Hill, and it's a home game for Stanford, and the game's being held at Boyle Stadium on Thanksgiving morning, which is wonderful for them. It's a great rivalry, and I'm sure it'll be a wonderful game. For us, that means that the stadium's no longer available. So Jay looked at Sacred Heart University, talked with Bobby Valentine there, and then was informed that their capacity actually is a little less than ours here at Dunning. We then looked at Fairfield University, we looked at Pace, we looked at Manhattanville, and found the same thing. Then we were stuck with looking at do we travel to a Yale Bowl or something like that, and then we had to pull ourselves back and say, wait, it's Thanksgiving morning, and this is a wonderful event, and it's a community event. We want it to be community-based. So what Jay did at that point was contact a company who brought in additional bleachers into Dunning. And if you do go to the game, or if you're not able to go to the game, or don't have a ticket, I do want to let everyone know it is being televised live. It's being streamed by Hand Network. It's also on TV, and I think the coverage will be excellent. But you'll see that we have 900 additional seats that were brought in with bleachers, both in the end zone and then another one over on the visiting side. We also I had some lengthy conversations with the superintendent in Darien, as you can imagine, about the tickets, and we came to an agreement about how best to distribute the tickets, and we are about 60-40 with the tickets. It's probably more like 58-42 with the tickets. And both Dan and I felt like that was a fair way to do it. The tickets were on sale today at both locations. People were lined up a few hours early, and they sold out very quickly. And
37 minutes.
Yeah, but we've sold about 4,000 tickets for Dunning Stadium. And that's thanks to the bleachers and thanks to the Hawes Plaza and the capacity that we have. So we believe that is the maximum capacity. Of course, if it's a cold, snowy, rainy day, we might not have to worry about it too much. If it's a day like last week on Friday or Saturday, we might have to worry about it a little bit more. But I want to commend Jay Egan, his staff, and for all of the work they did trying to first secure another venue, but then when that became possible, going through other steps to do the best he could to be sure that anyone who wants to see the game can. We can't do it for everyone, but certainly we are accommodating as many as that stadium can possibly accommodate the way that it's designed now. And it may be in the future we have more gentlemen coming to talk to us about fundraising for additional bleachers. And there's a little space there, perhaps it's possible. But we looked at the visitor side, and even there it drops right off on the other side of the bleachers if you've seen it. So we had someone come out and they said, no, we couldn't, nothing we could do there. So Jay has done a wonderful job. I want to commend him for that. I also just want everyone to know that it was not about a home field advantage. It was not about trying to do anything like that. Really, we did quite a bit of work trying to find the best venue we could. And then when we knew it was Dunning, we did the best we could to make that the best experience for everybody involved. So just
and I also think it's important to note that before any tickets were available to the community, last Friday, every student in the high school was allowed to purchase one ticket per child. So, it was open to the students first before the community. So.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So beyond that, I do want to also take the opportunity to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. I was able to send a letter out on Friday afternoon. I hope people have had a chance to see it about some of the great things going on here in the district. But really, it's also about how thankful I am, and I think we are, to be able to be part of the New Canaan Public Schools. It's a wonderful place to be. At our next meeting, which is 2 weeks from tonight, we will continue our discussion of the budget assumptions and look at those. And we'll also have an update on the digital citizenship work that's been going on as well. It's certainly connected with our theme here around health. And Sherry, I think your question a bit about sort of that counteracting media and sort of all the fake news that's out there, we'll be able to learn more about some of the steps that our students are being taught to validate information and become as literate as possible in the 21st century. Our intention now is to have ready for the board the Series 1000, which our governance committee of Tom and Deanna have been working very, very hard on. And I know that that's available. Well, we'll have that will be for a first read that evening as well. And I think, but there we have it.
All right, so we've come to the end of our agenda. If I could have a motion to adjourn. Penny, second. Sherry, all those in favor? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.